All right, so today we're cracking open Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah, this one's a bit of a jungle, isn't it?
It really is a real page turner, but also one that makes you think twice about, well, everything.
Absolutely. I mean, Green's diving deep into history here,
Yeah.
right? Pulling examples from, like, Caesar Borgia.
Even P.T. Barnum.
Exactly. It's this fascinating exploration of, like, the mechanics of power, how it works, how it's always worked.
And that's what we're doing today, going beyond just reading, really trying to unearth what these laws are all about.
Yeah, seeing them play out in these real-life scenarios Green throws at us, right?
Right. And hopefully figuring out how they might apply to, your life, our listeners' lives.
For sure, though, I think, disclaimer here, we're not out to turn anyone into some Machiavellian schemer.
Definitely not. More like giving you a bit of a strategic advantage, right?
Exactly. It's like once you understand the unwritten rules of the game.
You can play it a little smarter.
Exactly. And Green does a great job of, like, bringing these timeless patterns of influence to life, you know?
He really does. So, like,
Exactly. It was like, hey, look what I discovered. Let's name him after you.
pretty smart cookie.
Right. He understood his master's motivations, you could say. And it wasn't just empty slattery, you know. It was this calculated move that aligned his scientific ambitions with their thirst for glory.
And it worked. He became, what, their official court something.
Court philosopher and mathematician.
Talk about understanding your audience, right?
Exactly. He knew how to play the game.
It's like he won the game without anyone even realizing they were playing.
And that's the thing about these laws, you know.
Yeah.
They help you see those subtle ways influence operates, that undercurrent of power dynamics.
But misreading those dynamics, that's where things can get dicey, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like that story of Basilius, that Byzantine courtier.
Oh, man, Basilius.
Talk about ambition, right? He went from, like, best friends with Emperor Michael III to, well, not a happy ending.
Not a happy ending at all. Classic mistake of,
Getting a little too power hungry.
exactly. He let it go to his head, orchestrated his own uncle's murder, tried to control everything.
Talk about a power move backfire.
He basically showed his hand way too early.
Alienated the very person he needed on his side.
Yeah, not a good look.
Definitely a cautionary tale. Don't let them see you sweat. Or scheme, in this case. But Greene also talks a lot about deception, right?
Right.
And it's not always, like, as straightforward as, like, Basilius's blunder, is it?
No, it can be much more subtle, much more strategic.
What about those who use deception strategically, then?
Right, and that's where it gets really interesting. It's less about outright lying and more about, like, being strategic with your honesty.
The strategic honesty.
Yeah, like, think about Otto von Bismarck.
Okay.
Prussian statesman, brilliant guy,
Right.
absolutely loathed war, but publicly denounced it.
Wait, so he was against it?
Personally, yes, but he used that stance
To his advantage.
to consolidate power.
So he played the peacemaker while secretly strengthening Prussia's military?
He knew most people wouldn't suspect it, that playing the pacifist would gain him trust.
Wow. Talk about a long con.
It's about, presenting a more palatable image to achieve a greater goal.
Even if it means hiding your true intentions.
Exactly. Sometimes you got to play the game to change the game, right?
It's like he used their expectations against them. You'd never think advocating for peace would be a power move, but...
But it worked. And it makes you wonder, how often does that happen?
Right. How much of history is shaped by this kind of, like, calculated honesty?
Oh, I'd say a good chunk, definitely. And it's not just on the political stage, Remember our example of Yellow Kid Weil?
The con artist.
One and only. So he manages to swindle Al Capone, right?
Al Capone!
Yeah.
The gangster. Talk about a risky move.
Well, here's the thing. Weil was no dummy. He knew even someone as ruthless as Capone, deep down,
Got a soft spot.
craved genuine human connection. So what does Weil do? He returns a lost $50,000.
He just gives it back.
Knowing this act of, you could say, selective honesty?
Would pay off big time.
Exactly. It earned him Capone's trust and ultimately netted him far more than that initial sum.
Wow. It's like he played on Capone's need to believe in something good,
Exactly. It's about understanding your opponent's psychology, finding that crack in their armor.
Which brings us to, I think, another really interesting set of laws, right?
Oh, yeah. Ones that emphasize, like, mastering those social dynamics.
Leveraging those psychological insights.
Exactly. Laws 13, 14, 15, and 16. These are all about how you navigate the battlefield of, well, relationships.
All right, so we're talking, let's see, Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest. Law 14. Pose as a friend. Work as a spy.
Law 15. Crush your enemy totally. And Law 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor.
It's a real mixed bag. Appealing to self-interest, crushing your enemy, even like strategic absence. What's the common thread here?
It's all about recognizing that power dynamics are everywhere, even in seemingly harmless relationships.
Even friendships.
Even friendships. Take the story of Castruccio Castracani,
Who is that? Refresh my memory.
14th century Italian prince. Really ambitious guy.
Okay, great.
So his rival, Stefano di Poggio, pleads for mercy, right? Big mistake.
Because Castracani was not exactly Mr. Nice Guy.
Exactly. The guy built his power on being ruthless, strategic. Seeing Stefano beg like that.
Just showed weakness.
Exactly. In that world, mercy, it wasn't seen as noble. It was a liability.
So leaving an enemy alive, that's just asking for trouble.
According to Castracani, yeah.
Yeah.
Might seem harsh, but it was a different time.
Yeah.
Projecting that aura of strength, dominance, it was key to survival.
Makes sense. But obviously we're not saying brute force is always the answer.
No, of course not. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is information.
Which brings us to Law 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. This is where things get a little sneaky, right?
I wouldn't say sneaky, more like strategic observation. Think of it like a chess player, studying their opponent's every move.
Okay, so like always be thinking a few steps ahead.
Exactly. And a great example of this is Joseph Duveen, the art dealer.
Art dealer. What's so strategic about that?
This guy, he made it a point to learn everything about his clients' tastes in art before even meeting them.
So he could like tailor his pitch.
Exactly. Present himself as someone who understood their interests, their passions.
Subtle. He wasn't just selling art, he was selling a connection.
Precisely. He understood that knowledge, in this case, knowledge of his client's desires, that was power.
So mastering power dynamics, it's not always about manipulation, it's about understanding.
Exactly. It's about reading people, understanding their motivations.
Sometimes it even means like taking a step back.
Right. Which brings us to lie 16.
Use absence to increase respect and honor. It's like that saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Exactly. It's about strategic withdrawal, not disappearing entirely, but making yourself scarce enough that
you're more desirable.
you increase your perceived value. If you're always available, people take you for granted.
But make them wait a little.
You become more desirable, more interesting.
So how can someone like apply this in their own life, without going completely off the grid?
Think of it this way. Instead of always being available, be more intentional with your time.
Create a little mystery.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, being accessible, but also maintaining an air of,
exclusivity.
Exactly.
This reminds me of Bobby Fischer.
Oh, the chess prodigy. How so?
It's that whole unpredictability thing. Didn't he use that to like completely throw off his opponent?
He did. Law 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. And Fischer's match against Spassky is a perfect example.
Didn't he make all these like crazy moves? No one saw them coming.
Exactly. Spassky was a master strategist, but Fischer's unpredictability.
Just threw him off balance.
He was forced to react instead of strategize. It's about disrupting expectations, keeping your opponent guessing.
So like psychological warfare.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
But to be clear, we're not advocating for, manipulation or anything.
Of course not.
These laws, they're about awareness, understanding the tactics at play, not necessarily using them for
nefarious purposes.
Exactly. Sometimes the most powerful move is knowing when to hold back.
So it's not always about being the most aggressive or making the boldest move.
Not at all. Think about the millions and the Athenians.
This is that whole like surrender thing, right?
Law 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. The millions, they were facing the might of Athens.
David and Goliath.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But instead of surrendering, they chose to fight, believing honor would save them.
Didn't go so well.
Nope. They were blinded by their pride, their sense of, righteousness. They failed to see the bigger picture.
That sometimes it's more strategic to like
live to fight another day.
Exactly. Yielding, it's not always weakness.
Sometimes it's the smartest move you can make.
It's about choosing your battles, right? Yeah. Sometimes you got to know when to fold them.
Exactly. You don't want to waste your energy on fights you can't win. Sometimes retreating, it's not giving up, it's
strategic regrouping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it might even let you come back stronger.
Man, the more we talk about these laws, the more I realize like it's not just a list, it's a
system.
Yeah. We've got like perception, social dynamics, strategic surrender. It all kind of fits together, doesn't it?
It does. And it shows you those like subtle ways power operates, those hidden currents that are always there, whether you're aware of them or not.
Which is, I guess, the whole point, right? Become aware of the game you're playing.
Exactly. And that brings us to another fascinating piece of this puzzle.
Which is,
Self-reinvention, the power of like crafting your own narrative.
oh, like writing your own story.
Exactly. Laws 25, 32, and 41 really get into that.
All right, so from outward strategy, we're going more internal now. Let's see, Law 25, recreate yourself, Law 32, play to people's fantasies, and Law 41, avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. This is going to be good.
Yeah.
Lay it on me.
All right, so picture this. 19th century France, right?
Mm-hmm.
A woman wants to be a writer.
Not exactly an easy path back then, was it?
Not at all. But this woman, she's brilliant. Her real name was Amantine Lucille Aurore Dupin. But you probably know her as.
Wait, don't tell me. George Sand,
You got it.
the novelist. I've read some of her stuff. She was one of the first women to really make it big in the literary world, right?
Exactly. But back then, a woman writer. It was unheard of. So what does she do? Creates this whole persona, this male identity, George Sand.
She reinvented herself. To play the game, she had to change the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the power of Law 25. She knew what people expected, and she used that to her advantage. But it wasn't just about playing a role, you know? It was about creating a persona that let her share her gifts, her talent.
Yeah, truth.
Exactly.
It's like she tapped into something, like a deeper need people had, that desire for stories, for something beyond the ordinary.
Which is a perfect segue to Law 32, play to people's fantasies.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Think P.T. Barnum,
Circus guy.
the master showman. This guy, he knew people crave spectacle, that sense of wonder, you know, the impossible made real.
There's a sucker born every minute. Wasn't that his line?
Maybe, maybe not. But the point is, he understood something about human nature, that desire for, like, enchantment.
He gave them a good story, an escape.
Exactly. And in a way, isn't that what Bismarck did, what Yellow Kid Wheel did? They tapped into something people wanted, something they needed to believe in.
It's all connected. And it kind of makes you think about legacy, right? Like, what mark do you want to leave on the world?
Which brings us to our final law in this trio, Law 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one. Don't try to be the next someone. Be the first you.
Exactly. Try to replicate someone else's success. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
You're always going to be compared to the original, right?
Always in their shadow. So what's the alternative?
Forging your own path, like George Sand did. Creating something new, something authentically you. That's where true power lies, I think.
I like that. Finding your own voice, your own style, your own way of playing the game.
Exactly. And speaking of games, there are a couple more laws we should touch on.
Oh, yeah, we still have a bit of time. What else have we got?
Let's talk about timing. Or more specifically, the importance of like subtlety and knowing your limits.
Knowing your limits. We haven't talked much about that yet.
It's key. That's where Law 45 and 46 come in. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once, and never appear too perfect.
Okay, so don't rock the boat too much too quickly.
Exactly. People are naturally resistant to change, especially drastic, sudden change.
You come in swinging too hard.
People get defensive, even resentful. You got to pace yourself, choose your battles.
So it's more about like nudging things in the right direction.
Exactly. It's about understanding the spirit of the times, the prevailing mood, and working within those constraints.
So read the room before you redecorate it.
Perfectly put. Look at someone like Julius Caesar, right? Brilliant military mind, but he also understood how to work the crowd, how to present his ambitions in a way that appealed to the people.
He knew that timing was everything.
Exactly. It's not just about what you do, it's about when and how you do it.
Man, this has been enlightening, to say the least. We've covered so much ground today.
We have, from those ancient power plays to, showmen and con artists. It really makes you see the world differently.
It does, and I hope our listeners are getting that same feeling, that sense of, hey, I never thought of it like that before.
That's the goal, to spark some curiosity, some self-reflection.
And maybe, just maybe, help them level up their own game, whatever that game might be.
Exactly. Remember, knowledge is power, but it's what you do with that knowledge that really matters.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep that mind sharp.